Good morning, everybody. All the best to you and yours from NSBAR, our board of directors and staff. Hope you are all staying safe and healthy. I'm very excited this morning. We're going to jump right into things. I've got a couple of great guests. First guest that I've got coming on with us here is Jim Schiefelbein. Jim is our Director of Marketing and Communications here at NSBAR. One of the things that was exciting to me coming on board at NSBAR was that Jim was here. I've known Jim for a number of years. Consider him a good friend. I don't know if he still feels that way about me now that we're working together, but suffice it to say, one of the things that I love, and Jim, I want to start by talking about this, is your background. You're not an association communications person in terms of background, right? So let's start there.
Right. Well, I've been attached to the real estate world for most of my career, which began in the mid-'80s, 3 decades ago. And one of the reasons that I've worked primarily in competitive real estate since the time I got in the business. And one of the reasons that it just has constantly kept my interest is it's such a dynamic and ever-changing environment. I love the entrepreneurialism of it and the way in which the realtors approach their craft, and it's constantly in motion. And I remember back to when we created the first real estate website in the area in 1995, and there was some initial resistance to it, where a lady in one of the offices said to us, "Internet, hairnet, what's the difference?" And how quickly that changed, because 10 years later, we were in New York talking about the first decade of interactive marketing in real estate, and it's just been a great trip ever since.
Terrific. And
I also,
from my perspective, in looking at a business approach in terms of our communications and our marketing, can you talk a little bit about that in terms of how you approach the things that come down on a day-to-day basis through NSBAR?
Yeah, absolutely. I have long believed in a concept that everything speaks, and that means every touch point, every communication channel, every visual reference, those sorts of things. And that's one of the sort of philosophies that we've tried to bring to NSBAR since I joined in October of 2018, is really to sort of pull a lot of this stuff together and clarify things. This was informed a lot with the work that I did with regard to World Trade Center, and pulling their materials together. It was the case again with NSBAR that we had a lot of material, but it really needed to be curated properly. It needed to be streamlined. It needed to be more interactive and adjusted to attune to today's approach and the things that our members are really looking for, in order to generate ultimately what we're looking for is member engagement, and then firing on all 3 cylinders of sort of the in-office classroom experience, which we're not able to have right now, and the digital experience, which we'll talk a little bit more of, and also our events. So all 3 of those sort of dimensions of NSBAR membership come together here, and it's just been a great project of digital transformation that we've been about here, which I've carried forward really throughout my career to make sure that we're just never stagnant with the things that we're doing. We're constantly looking for new trends and different things that are out there in the real world, if you will, of business and that sort of thing. I remember when I was started at Beard & Warner, Steve Baird was very clear with me that don't look inside here, look outside, look at the business world, see what other companies are doing, and then bring that stuff into the practice of real estate, and particularly in terms of communications.
And I love how that's what that's resulted in, and it's part of our culture, is this proactiveness rather than reactiveness, which I think is critical. A great example of that, and I know everyone listening is interested in the proactive reaction. What we've done what we're doing right now to help our members during obviously a really unique time. What's NSBAR done to amp up our member communications during the COVID-19 crisis?
So you're right to point that out, Jeff, in that what was great about this experience was that we weren't caught flat-footed in this because we didn't know what was coming or anything, but what we had done prior to the COVID crisis was to lay in a lot of communications foundation. And then when this crisis hit, we were able to quickly and swiftly pivot because we had the tools at hand, we had the technology at hand, we had the personnel at hand, and we just tuned up those messages. Some of the things that we've done, and the members have seen this, is the dramatic increase in member emails and the incorporation of a lot more video into those emails, which we're seeing, huge traction bumps in that. Our open rate has more than doubled in terms of people actually looking at those emails and getting their information that way. But we didn't stop there. The other thing that we did was we created these podcasts. And this has been a unique and new way for us to communicate with the membership on a regular basis. And we have now 4 podcasts that are running throughout any given month. We have Raising the NSBAR twice a month. We have our GADcast once a month that's exclusive to us. We have Deborah DeBoer, our professional development director, has EduCast, where she talks about what's coming up in our professional development courses. And of course, we have Tech Talk, which is an opportunity for us to spotlight the great work of our technology team. So those are 3 of the things that we've done. One other important thing, and I almost forgot about this, is we created a consolidated COVID-19 page, because one of the things that we knew with this situation being so fluid and so dynamic and things changing all of the time, it was difficult for us to keep up with the information stream. It was like really, trying to drink from a fire hose. And so what we tried to do with the COVID-19 page is assemble one place where our members could go. And at the top of every page, there's a purple button. You just click on that, you go into this. And we've assembled important resources for our members, as well as links, outbound links to other things. So they really can go to one place and get a wide access to a lot of material.
So if you were to suggest to a member the best way or best ways to connect with NSBAR, to stay abreast of current news information, not just COVID-19, but overall goings on at NSBAR, what would you suggest? What would you recommend?
Probably 3 things. The first of which would be to bookmark that COVID-19 page so that it's available to you for easy access, because that's where we're going to put links to things like unemployment insurance for independent contractors, or our addendum to the contract that our Forms and Contracts Committee put together. So bookmarking that page would be sort of number 1. Another thing to do is absolutely follow us on our social media channels, primarily on Facebook, because that's where we're dropping things that come in throughout the day. And, sometimes we're updating that information a couple of times a day as required. And the third thing is probably whitelist the NSBAR.org emails that are coming into you, so that you're not missing out on any information that we're trying to share with you. Some of it being quite important during these critical times.
Yeah, and I want to come back to NSBAR.org in a moment, but you mentioned the social networking, and I want to talk about this notion that we're not carpet bombing our members with emails 3 times a day. And obviously our social networks are an important component of this, right?
That's right. That's right. And it also takes advantage of what is unique with social media, in that we're just not in a situation where it's about monologue anymore. This is really about dialogue. And I think that's particularly essential to just sort of the NSBAR approach that we try to take here, which is an emphasis on high quality, high touch, but also trying to do things that are more personal and connective. And we're very proud of the fact that when we're asked questions, for example, on our Facebook channel, we're rated very highly in terms of our responsiveness there. So if people have questions about some things, that's a place where they can ask and really interact with us. It is social media because it's a dialogue, not a monologue going out to our membership. So that's absolutely something that people should be doing.
Yeah, and I love the notion that, okay, so we have a way of let me say, constantly, in a sense, keeping in touch with our members in a proactive way by issuing information, putting information out on the social networks. We've also got this repository of information that people can consult whenever they choose, and that's NSBAR.org. So I'm maybe just dive into some highlights about NSBAR.org that our people, that the listeners would be interested in.
Well, I think what we tried to do in coming here was to take a look at this, and a lot of my strong suit has been not only content creation, but also really working with regard to user experience. And so one of the first things that we did with NSBAR.org was to stop approaching it as if it were a typical commercial outbound site of any business. This was an important sort of change that we made to look at the site as being primarily a utility for our members, right? It is a resource. It is a utility. And so once we took that approach, we streamlined and came up with sort of the 6 NSBAR attributes of education and resources and support and membership and affiliates and advocacy. Those are 6 core buckets, if you will. And so the whole site sort of flows from there. The other problem that we had with our website when I came was it was a Frankenstein website. It wasn't a singular website. It was composited of about 7 different websites. And so the user experience was exceptionally clunky. You had to, log in here, log in there, all of that sort of stuff. Now we really have 2 facets to our site. We have an outside site, an open piece, and then we have the members only material that is exclusively available to NSBAR members. For example, things like contracts and forms and so forth. And they work in communion one to the other, and they look similar, so that it doesn't, when you log into the member side of things, which we call My NSBAR Dashboard, when you log into that, you are no longer, sort of in Alice in Wonderland. It functions and looks and feels like the other side of the site. And you're able to get to any of the open content as well as that. And furthermore, because the cookies recognize you once you've logged in and used your unique credentials, it actually recognizes who you are. And we use the technology to drive out to you. For example, the board of directors gets a lot of more information than our committee members, and then things that are pertinent just to the general membership. Well, when you log in using your unique credentials, the machine actually knows that, and then as long as you don't log out, it stays with you, and you can access internal or external content as you will.
Mm-hmm. So it sounds to me like we've got this, we've got NSBAR.org that's out there for our members to consult whenever they choose. We have our social networks, which immediately gets information to them. If you miss that stuff during the week, we'll get out as needed, or as on occasion, the emails that go out to everybody to update them, especially if it's particularly important stuff. And I know we have the bulletins that we utilize on Connect MLS as well, in case we really want to get something in front of people. So we have a number of different ways. The one thing that we haven't touched on yet, that I'm curious about too, in terms of how effective it's been, is our texting solution.
Sure. And I think, just before I dive into the texting solution, you're absolutely right to point this out. I mean, one of the things that we did with the NSBAR communications ecosystem was really to develop it as an advertising agency or a business would look at it, in that we have a number of things that are both passive as well as and proactive, as well as some things that are just available at any time, and it's really this media mix that we're trying to utilize here, because we understand that people are coming in with different tool sets and interests and so forth and so on. When we took to making the website one of the, back to the website, we looked at this as being putting the power of NSBAR in people's hands. One of the complaints that we had, and it was a right one from the membership, was that the site was not available on a mobile device. And now, because we use responsive design, it is available on any device, anytime, and it optimizes for that experience depending on what device you're using to access. But we also knew that mobility was a key factor here, and we wanted to put that power into our members' hands. So as we were creating the site, in addition to things like integrating a wonderful platform that enables our members to very quickly sign up for our events and our classroom experiences, far easier than it had been in the past. One of the other things that we did was we added a texting solution. When we were among the pioneers of that in the association world. I actually brought this from another business that I had worked at prior to coming to NSBAR, and it has just succeeded beyond our wildest dreams. I can tell you that the technology that it replaced was a chat function, and we had 112 chats that were placed over the time span of 1 year. The texting solution that we have in position for NSBAR members today, and I think we went live with this just about a year ago, which is pretty amazing. And we've already seen 10,453 texts through that system. So to go from 112 to 10,453, it kind of tells you that the users were really turned on by this thing. And it's a very easy to use technology. And what has been particularly important in this COVID time in terms of staying in touch with people and enabling them to stay in touch with us at a safe social distance and something that's very sustainable has been this texting solution. And so this was a technology, as I said, we put into place sort of around first, second quarter of 2019. And now here we are in this crisis situation. In January, before all this stuff really started hitting hard, we were doing about 385 in the texts in the month of January. But in March, we can see that bumped up to an increase of over 33% because it went up to 574 texts on that particular month. And so what I love about the texting solution is how intuitive the whole thing is with regard to our membership. We didn't have to send out a lot of instructions. It's just click, click, click. And another cool thing about it is you don't have to be at NSBAR.org to utilize it. If you use your phone and you dial up 847-480-7177, what happens is your phone will ask you, do you want to text this number or do you want to call this number? And more of our members are adopting to text.
And it's for anything, right? I mean, you could text in whatever question you might have or things like that, right?
Anything at all. It enables our members to stay in connection with us just as they would on a phone. So our members can connect with our staff during regular business hours, Monday through Friday, 8:30 to 5, just as if we were in the office. But we can now do this from anywhere, and we haven't lost a step in terms of what our ability to connect with our membership and support our members, especially in this very difficult time.
Mm-hmm. Well, terrific. And so let's go and take a quick look now at what's coming up here in May in particular. I know that there's a couple of things that are happening, and so I'll just let you fire away on what you're excited about.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of cool stuff. As I said in an article, in an interview recently, we at NSBAR have really looked at this as being an occasion for innovation. Yes, it's been challenging. Yes, we've had to move quickly. Yes, we've had to pivot. And by we, I mean all of us. I mean staff, volunteers, membership, the whole thing. We're all doing business very different today than we were on middle of March when the decision was made to close the physical offices. And I think it's just been remarkable how much the membership has responded. And so in addition to us doing these things, of course, NAR is doing some cool stuff. You can look on our website and register for free for the very first ever NAR mid-year virtual experience. It's called 2020 Realtors Homefront. And it's really a unique way for people who haven't been able to get to the NAR mid-year conference to see what kind of goes on there, in a virtual way, and really have that a little bit of that experience. And so I would definitely urge members to get registered for that, check it out, see what's going on there. We also have just announced this morning, and we will be posting this on our Facebook page and elsewhere. We're going to be doing a capital conference at home. And this is something that Illinois Realtors has been working on, along with, for example, our GAD, Joe Roth. This package of content is coming very cool and very soon, and we'll have all that stuff up. So I definitely urge our members to take a look at that later today on our Facebook page. And another thing that we're doing, and we're doing this in connection with our Young Professionals Network, our YPN, NSBAR's YPN, is last year we had a wonderfully successful event at Ravinia Green, and we had young top producers as a panel who came together and shared their insights and expertise. This year, our YPN chair, Brady Anderson, suggested that, let's not do this. Let's just reimagine it as a virtual experience. And so that's exactly what we're doing. That'll be coming up on Thursday. Make sure I got the right date. Thursday, May the 21st, from 1 to 2 p.m. We're just in the process of getting ready to start pushing out the promotion for this. It's absolutely free. Every single one of our members can take a look at this. And what's particularly, I think, relevant, and what will really be a turn on for a lot of our members, is that the focus of the event this year is called Retooling for the Reboot, preparing for the new normal in real estate. And this is the conversation that's going to ensue. And I think some of these young top professionals that we have in NSBAR are going to really help inform our membership and really bring that kind of street level, here's what's actually going on, because this, as we're all hearing, is going to be with us as part of our lives for a while, and we're just going to need to be retooled and still doing business, and real estate's going to do that.
Excellent.
So those are three things that are coming up.
Yeah, we've got some stuff going on, and I know too that we're going to be opening up committee applications shortly, right, as well, so
Correct.
People can get out there and apply to participate on NSBAR committees. That's going to be coming out about mid-May as well. And there's one other thing I do want to mention before we get to our other guests, and that is NSBAR, not just now, but we're engaged in community outreach, and I'm hoping you can talk a little bit about our plans with NSBAR Cares.
Yeah, absolutely. So NSBAR Cares started last year actually with our YPN, and what happened there was they mounted an event at the Curragh, which was an Irish pub, and they did it as a fundraising benefit for the Lurie Children's Hospital, and they exceeded their expenses in terms of raffle prizes and things like that were going on. And we were able to give to Lurie Children's Hospital a check for $5,000, just a donation. And following that, then we had our wonderful Centennial Celebration that we did at the Chicago Botanic Garden in last September. And we again realized more money than we spent. And so we redirected that money at the direction of our board to 4 charities: Family Promise, Habitat for Humanity, the Illinois Relief Foundation, and Operation Warmth. So each one of those received $5,000 donation from NSBAR, and that's been great. So we're extending that this year, and part of what we're trying to do is think of new ways that we can use the NSBAR Cares umbrella to sort of encircle the efforts that we know, that the great efforts that our realtor members are doing in their communities. We know that realtors are good neighbors in their communities, and we know that demonstrating that to our communities as part of a solid community outreach effort is going to be essential to what we're trying to get across as we move forward. And so we really, again, occasion for innovation. We really want to make sure that that these local communities that we're serving are aware of all the different ways. And it's not just about fundraising, but sometimes it's friend raising, sometimes it's rolling up your sleeves and getting involved with food pantries and so forth. And all of that stuff is important to the ways in which our realtor members stay in touch and are vital parts of their communities that they serve.
Yeah, really cool initiative. And I'm really proud that that's something that NSBAR has already had in place. looking forward to a lot of activity with that and the growth going forward. And Jim, when I say I want to thank you for your time here, because I thought it was important for our members to hear about the different ways that we're doing these communications. I also think that it's, and staying in touch with them. The NSBAR Cares thing, it's so important to all of us, I know, and as it was a really cool thing that we've uncovered because of the attention that it's been getting locally and nationally, is that one of our broker owners, Ryan Gable, he's here with us this morning from Starting Point Realty, has done some a really cool thing that we're going to talk about right now. But first of all, good morning, Ryan. How are you?
Good morning, Jeff. Thanks for having me on.
No, thanks for joining us. You know what? Just tell everybody a little bit about yourself before we dive into this.
Sure. I live in Palatine. I'm from Palatine, and I got into, I went to school at Winona State in Minnesota. I was in logistics for 10 years, and then my wife actually she still owns a virtual assistant company for realtors. So she was helping realtors throughout the country. She built her own business. And when I was about 26, 27, I was going for grad school. We bought our first house. That did not go very well. And I just had I come from a family of entrepreneurs, my mom, my stepdad. So I wanted to start something. And from the experience of buying my first home, as rough as it was, I just had an idea of like, why are there real estate companies that just focus on first-time buyers? And I thought for sure that answer was going to be, oh yeah, there's a ton. And then as I started to research in Chicago, there was zero. Then you come to learn first-time buyers is not the easiest crowd to deal with, but I love it. I'm a patient person. I like to teach people things. I like to coach people. So at the time, you didn't have to take the test because I was getting my MBA. So I never worked for another company. I didn't take any classes. I just read a 450-page book and took the test, and I passed, and I was able to start a company in 2004, Starting Point Realty. And I quit my job, which was a very nice job for a 26, 27-year-old. And I started up, and I didn't know what I was doing. So a friend of mine was a real estate agent, somebody that worked with my wife. I told him, I'm going to pay you $2,000, $3,000. I'm going to call you 10 o'clock at night. I'm going to call you at 8 o'clock in the morning. I need you to walk me through how to do deals. And he's like, don't worry about the money. And then after 4 months, I remember after about 3,000 phone calls, he said, why don't we talk about that money one more time? So, it was the best check I ever wrote because, and that was the start of Starting Point Realty, and where we're at. We're 20 agents, and I have an office in Roscoe Village, and I have an office in Schaumburg, and it's a lot of fun. We have a good time.
Now, and I wish if I had a nickel for every time I spoke to a real estate professional who said they got into the business because of their experience in a real estate transaction, good or bad. I wouldn't be here talking to you guys. I'd be on a beach in the Bahamas or something, because it seems like a lot of people get involved in our industry because of that. And so it's a neat story. Sounds like you're experiencing some great success, but you got a little bit of attention recently. And I know that Realtor Magazine, NAR, ended up reaching out to you. You got some local attention as well. So rather than me talking about it, maybe you can tell everybody what you decided to do.
Well, when everything was happening mid-March, and then we were shut down, stay at home in Illinois, I just had this desire to help, but it's very hard to do that. Jim was talking about food pantry. It's hard to obviously do that, especially those first couple of weeks. If we remember, like, we didn't know what was going on, and we thought we were going to be holed up in our basement for the next 6 months. We didn't, know what was happening. And I own an RV. I own a mobile home. This is my second one. My first one I owned for 4 years. I sold it. And the one I own now is a 2018 Winnebago Vista. It's 36 foot long. And I kept going to it to grab a few things out. You're always leaving things in it and checking in on it. And I just kept thinking to myself, what can I do with this? how can I utilize this to help what's happening? And I put it on my Facebook, on my personal Facebook page, and just mentioned it. Hey, there's a lot of professional, medical professionals that I'm friends with, and I just said, hey, can I drop this off at the hospital? Can this be a testing unit outside the hospital? Could it be used for that? And then one of my neighbors posted, hey, listen, there's stories about doctors and nurses coming home, but they're living in a tent in their garage or outside. And this is the end of March. So wait, so you have nurses and you have doctors that are going into hospitals with COVID-19 patients, and then they're coming home and then they're in a tent in their backyard at the end of March. So that immediately was like, listen, let's use this art, let's put it out there into the world and see if we can find somebody. Now, this is a big RV, so a lot of people don't understand you have to have a driveway big enough, and you can't just put that on the street, and you have to have a level driveway. So I put it onto everything Palatine, which come to find out is run by the Daily Herald. I just put it up there, and I thought it was going to be like 50 people saying something, or maybe getting in a nurse or a doctor that way. Well, I put it on at like 10 o'clock at night, and by noon the next day, it was shared like 600 times, 1,200 likes. I mean, it blew up into something I had no idea. The Daily Herald reached out to me right away. I didn't post it as a realtor. I put it as myself. And I talked to the Herald that day, and then someone told me about the group RV for medical professionals, that this was already happening, and which was great, because I thought I was going to, this is how my thoughts work, is like, okay, I will start building a page for this. And it's so great, when you're 45 years old and you realize, when you see somebody already doing something and doing a good job with it, it's like, good, I don't have to reinvent the wheel. So I took then that post, I put it on that page, and then I had about 10 interested nurses, doctors. And so I drove to all their houses, and not one person had a level driveway. Everyone thinks their driveway is level, but it has to be completely flat or just a little bit of a pitch. One time in North Lake, I drove up, and they told me he was in the backyard and with a tent. And I pulled up, and when I pulled up and I saw his tent in the backyard, I just remember just crying. I mean, I was just bawling. I mean, I just couldn't get over it. But their driveway was just so pitched. And then the good news is somebody from Lombard reached out. She's a nurse, and the husband reached out to me. Went to look at his driveway, and everything worked out perfectly. They didn't have the electricity that the RV needs. You have a 15 amp electricity from your garage. My RV takes a 50 amp, but the thing is, if you've ever watched like Apollo 13 and the spaceship, and like they're trying to conserve on the electricity, you just have to do a little bit of that. So after we delivered it, and then she was doing coffee maker and things like that, and like the heater. So there's a couple days of trying to help her with that through the phone. But that we placed it with a nurse in Lombard, a great family, couple of kids, and she just was moved to the ICU, the COVID-19 ICU, and she didn't want to bring it into her house. So that was, I think, 3 weeks ago. We placed it there, and then the story just became infectious, and people, I think, were really just looking for a feel good story. So it really got some traction that way.
Well, and yeah, surely it's I say it makes you feel good to help people, obviously. So that's clearly what your motivation was, is to help, to do your part as a part of this pandemic. But I suppose that there have been people, or there may have been some impact on your business, your real estate business from doing this, or
not yet. And again, I think it's because I put it out there as Ryan Gable. I didn't want it to be a an all starting point realty thing. I didn't want to take advantage of the situation. So it was kind of put out there more as Ryan Gable. However, what has happened is, walking down the street or being at the local grocery store, somebody will see me and say something and say, "You're the RV guy. Mm-hmm. You're the guy that don't like what," and have had people say, "Are you nuts? Are you crazy that you would do something like that?" So it's been a good conversation starter. So I think people You know, they, especially my neighbors, they know what I do. It's just a reinforcement of, like, you know, what we were talking about as realtors. And I think they're just, the good thing about it is the communication, you know, to be a part of that communication, that as realtors, we do give back and we do care. And this has been a very, very passionate thing about me from the summit that happened. I think Chicago Agent did it in February, and they had the counsel from NAR come and talk about the lawsuit for the buyer's brokerage. And what was the one thing that she said? She said, you guys have got to do, and she was talking to realtors, you guys have got to do a better job with your PR and the positivity that you guys do in the world. And that hit me like a ton of bricks. And I said, she's exactly right. She's 1,000. We do not do a good enough job to get that out. So to be a part of that and have this be, you know, to be a part of, I think, a major story out there for realtors in general, that's, I think, the best part. So for me, I think I'll have it. It'll be an impact on my business at some point. And that would be great. But I think overall, it's more proud that it's a story to push the narrative for realtors in general.
Hey, that's, and it's a great story. I have to say, just as a side note, by the way, I obviously know nothing about RVs. I had absolutely no idea that it would be so difficult, you know, I mean, in the terms of finding the right place or the right way to take advantage of this. Are there any other ideas that you're coming up with now? Any other things that you're thinking about, or ways you might recommend that our members become more involved?
I mean, I think obviously not everybody has an RV, and obviously this is difficult. You know, a couple of realtors that I've talked of the, you know, with the association, there's a couple of realtors that just, they literally can't leave the house. You know, they're living with parents or, you know, elderly that they can't even leave. So I understand that this isn't something that everybody can do physically to get out of the house. However, you know, what I've just been trying to tell people is, listen, if you're great with yoga, I mean, we all have in our neighborhoods, we all have like a Facebook page, or most of us. And if you don't, build one. Now's the time to do that. So take your neighborhood and build a Facebook page. And then, are you a past teacher? Offer to be a tutor to people. You know, my kids, both of them, one in math and one biology, could use a neighbor to do a Zoom, you know, tutoring once or twice a week. I personally, from this, I started to say, to your point, Jeff, of like, okay, what else can I do? I'm a bike rider, bicycles. And if I posted on Facebook to my neighborhood and I said, listen, I've had a couple of people, and a couple of people have asked me specifically, they text me like, hey, I got a flat tire. Hey, you know, can you come and help out? Can you look at my bike? All of a sudden, I was kind of becoming the bike guy in the neighborhood this year, because a lot of people weren't taking things to bike shops, or our bike shops open. So I posted, I said, listen, I'm not a bike repair person, but I know a little bit. I could change your tire. I have a nice bike rack on the back of my car. I could take up to 4 bikes up to the bike shop. Well, that got probably more attention than the RV in my neighborhood. I mean, everyone loved it. And then, of course, I had to go to people's houses and change tires. But my thing is my passion is, right now, you have to be on a bike. It is for mental health, you know, for families to get out there and do that. So it's not, I don't think we have to do the very big things. I think it's, let's concentrate on the small things, and we all have interests and things outside of real estate that we could really share with our local neighborhood.
And it sounds to me like it would just be part of the quote unquote job description as a realtor, that you would have deep involvement in your community. I mean, it makes sense to me that would be part and parcel with what you do.
I agree 100%. And I think it's also thinking outside the box, as far as, you know, we do a food drive and we do a coat drive, but I challenge all my agents, let's think outside the box and let's do things differently. And this is the time that I think that we can do things differently and think outside the box. And yeah, you are, I mean, you're definitely going to be remembered for that. And I see it. Like I said, I walking down the street the other day, I had a couple neighbors that I rarely see. And they mentioned both the RV and the bike, and it's really comes from the heart. It's really, you know, we want to give, we want to, and it becomes infectious, you know. It's even like when you talk to Jim, you know, Jim, you're awesome. You know, if anybody wants to wake up in the morning and have a jolt, grab your coffee and call Jim at 9 o'clock. And by 9:30, you're ready to go, man. You know, it is infectious. So it's the same thing. So we can all pitch in and do it. We gotta just build some time into it. That's all.
Well, all I have to say to you, Ryan, is what a great message, and how much we appreciate being able to hold you up as a NSBAR member and as a realtor. And thank you for what you've done here. And I think it's terrific. I think it's a great way for our members to think about how to do service as well as to benefit themselves. We're all in business. So unless have I forgotten anything, or I think we're good to go, Ryan, and appreciate it. Thank you for everything. Jim, thanks again for coming on board with us as well. And I would like to thank Bradley Laberman for running the board as usual, doing a great job for us. And as Jim said earlier, make sure to join us for our upcoming podcasts. You'll see the notifications for them in our emails and in our social networking. And everybody, please stay safe, stay healthy. We're getting through this. Just a little while longer. Thanks. Take care.